Next up are Paul and John. Guys, don't forget to post your questions for the Q&A part through the Q&A channel. Paul and John, the screen is yours. Go for it.
Great, thanks Norbert. Great to be here. So I'm Paul Martin, I'm from Xaxis, lead marketing science for Xaxis. And John, do you want to say a few words?
Hi, yeah, I'm John Pickles, and I lead the digital marketing optimization program at Ford of Europe. So if we can perhaps pop on to the next slide, I'll take you through the first 2 or 3 and then hand over to Paul. What that means in practice is it's a bit like a digital lab, and I run a pretty rigorous industrial test and learn process. And what we're talking about here, if we can pop on to the next slide, falls within this overall process. And the key idea is a lot of marketers had forever that we all know that an interaction on a website aren't all equal. In the case of motoring manufacturers, if we pop on to the next slide again, we really wanted to understand and quantify, and that's the point, the difference between, say, a test drive and just starting to look at a particular product or nameplate page. So having done that, that was a process of econometric modeling. It's quite difficult in the motor business because it's typically a fairly long journey, 3 to 6 months, and it's often generally a broken journey. So if we just pop across, we used our econometric modeling skills and analysts to be able to quantify what those coefficients are in terms of build and price versus a test drive and everything in between. But the next key piece of insight is how could we use that? How could we take that quantification of the value of those interactions and use it in our digital programmatic advertising program? And I think I'll hand over to Paul at that point.
Yeah, thanks, John. So what you see here on the left-hand side of this chart is the number of visits to some of those key points on the website that we were sort of looking at. You know, can contrast to the previous chart. What you see here is most visits to pages which actually have a lot of volume and are actually not so much value, so to speak. So test drive, for example, is the most valuable kind of type of page that leads as a lead indicator sales, but actually has the least amount of volume. And I guess that's pretty typical across most websites, not just automotive, really. And our programmatic advertising was really buying based upon where most of the data is. So we're sort of at the configurators, and I guess that kind of broadly makes sense. Models like data, so give them as much data as you possibly can. But here, obviously, we're missing out on the importance of some of those high value pages and which are really strong lead indicators into sales. So I guess the challenge from Ford was, can we keep on buying media in the same way and hope to get lucky and cross fingers that we manage to improve purchase intent? Or should we do something a little bit smarter, basically? So we took that, went away and took a look at what we could do differently. First thing we looked at was remarketing. This is advertising to people who've recently visited Ford's website. And we have an algorithm for that. That's algorithm number 2 here on this slide. And at the time, that was just looking at recency. So how somebody had been recently to the website, we would sort of bid a higher price for these people for impressions. And what we wanted to do was keep the recency bit, but also to layer in the likelihood for somebody to come back to the website. So really taking into account sort of browsing patterns on the website, but not just coming back, the likelihood to come back to the website, but the likelihood to come back to the website and go to some of these high value website pages like a test drive. So kind of, again, additionally layering into the econometrics purchase intent weights as well. Ford also does some advertising to people who haven't been to the website. We call that prospecting, and that's algo number 3 here. We use DSP data solely for that particular algorithm, and it's very feature rich. And there's lots of fast moving data here where we're kind of learning real time through the lifetime of the campaign. And that provides some great results. And again, we have to update that algorithm to include the purchase intent metrics or weights as well. But what we find also is that, when we're looking across a range of markets across Europe and budgets and different car models, some car models are more popular than others, that sort of the DSP data, there's just not enough of it sometimes. And so the algo number 3 really struggles sometimes in certain prospecting territories. So what I would call sort of poor data context. So we had to kind of look at other types of data, in this case, sort of the website analytics data from, say, Adobe, which is relatively feature poor compared to the DSP data, but actually we could get access to sort of 12 months or plus more of data, which gave us a huge amount of outcomes. So we basically had these sort of, the econometrics algorithms, plus these sort of remarketing and a couple of different prospecting algorithms, all sort of, all combined together and deployed across sort of 20 markets and all the sort of major car models, which is sort of 5 or 10, depending upon which market we're in. And so, what were the results? I mean, I think, we don't have time today, sadly, to kind of, share all the war stories from the last couple of years. So, we've got a bit of a sanitized view here, but, in brief, we saw kind of obviously a better mix of traffic to the website, which is sort of what you're sort of seeing here. So we're able to sort of buy impressions that sort of trade off the right balance between sort of low volume, high value types of outcomes like a test drive, and high volume, low value outcomes like a configurator, for example. And here you can sort of see we're able to maintain demand to the website for those sort of high value, low value, high volume, low value outcomes, and really drive up and find, really cherry pick and find those rare impressions that are going to lead into a test drive. And you can sort of see here, we've improved those test drives by about 5 times. When we look at the, scaling, look at this, the overall results that improve purchase intent. And if you look at the, how each algorithm is contributing to that, you can see here that, when we look at the sort of the cost per purchase intent metrics, we were able to improve remarketing by sort of over 25%, improve prospecting by 30%, and improve prospecting advertising for those sort of poor data contexts by 36%. And when you add all of those value up across all of those 20 markets and different car models, that was coming in at around a 7-figure improvement in programmatic effectiveness for Ford, basically. So we have a few more minutes, and I thought what might be useful really is to sort of share a few learnings along the way. I mean, there's thousands of learnings that we've learned along the way. We don't have time to go into all of them, but one way to sort of package this up, I thought, was, which I don't know if some of you have seen this, but this is, I quite like this. This is from a guy called Alexander Borak. He talks about sort of the Bermuda Triangle of using AI to transform your business or organization. You kind of need to kind of balance all 3 of these different elements. So for example, if you, have a bit of capability and somebody's willing to give your AI capability a shot, you can kind of get a product deployed across your organization or business. Or, maybe you've got a bit of a product, or, if you want to invest in more capability, then, it certainly helps if you've already demonstrated some value or got some benefits from some product already. You've got a leadership who are kind of willing to invest a little bit more and can realize the benefits you're adding, or vice versa. If you've got some capability and got some great products, then it helps accelerate your culture and so on and so forth. So if you take a look at sort of some of the learnings, just a very few ones basically across those 3 dimensions, and sort of, from a capability perspective, just make sure you explore and exploit all of the types of data that sit across your organization. In our case, we were mainly using DSP data in the past. You don't just have to set up a DSP data, look for something else. Watch out for the trade-offs between more data or data with more features. Sometimes, faster feature-rich data with smaller outcomes can be less useful than data with sort of large outcome volumes, but may actually be less, have maybe less features or less feature rich. From a product perspective, choose a metric, choose your outcomes which are as close as your business outcomes that you can get. Don't settle for poor proxies. Really challenge what you've got and get as close to what you're trying to get to as well. Adapt your data usage to your use cases. We don't have one algorithm for remarketing and prospecting. We have multiple different algorithms at play here. And from a culture perspective, I think this was the critical thing for us, really. You're going back to John's first slide. you know, having that kind of industrialized test and learn program really allowed us to kind of collaborate across all of our different teams and organizations, and really gave us the license and freedom to explore and exploit. We would have never been able to sort of get the benefits that you see here without sort of that in place. And so, John, maybe you got a few words to sort of finish off, basically. John?
I think 20 seconds is just fine. We should be all right. I seem to have lost the last slide there on my screen. However, the exciting thing about all of this is it's really like the gift that keeps on giving, and we're able to take the principle of having established that we can modify programmatic bidding with first-party data. So it's the point Paul was making about first-party data. So now we're able to go out and look at other ways of doing that, both on the tactical level, such as optimizing bids for the inventory that we have online, or at the more strategic level, optimizing our bidding according to the contribution margin that a particular product line, in our case, a vehicle, will have. So those are the things that we're looking to explore now, and it's been a great journey and continues to be a highly profitable one. Thank you very much.
Excellent, Paul, John. Thank you very much.